Never allowing phases in the process and say, hey man, Ink, how did you deal with this? How did you deal with this? When they told you this, how did you accept that? Right? How did you process that? And I was like, bingo, this is how I got through it. This is how I dealt with it, right? But I had to shift my perspective from why me to why not me? What you went through just wasn't for you, right? Basically, like I was being selfish about my situation and my experience. Like when we go through a situation and circumstance, it's easy to step back and think, man, I just went through this and it's just my experience. I firmly believe when we go through things, it's for us to deal with it, get over it, and reach back over the hill to help another person. And a lot of times, like you said, when you're trying to work through it, you think, man, how can I help somebody? And I'm trying to get through it myself, right? And that's a great perspective, right? But when you get through it, right? Maybe you can't help them when you're in the midst of it because you're processing it. But when you get over the hill, I think it's important and I think it's vital that you reach back over the hill and help somebody that may be going through a similar situation, and you can share your values and principles with them, because that experience that we go through and we deal with is not just for us. My teacher changed my life. When he met me in the 8th grade, the first day he told me my wife at the time, he said that she's gonna be your wife one day. Scared the mess out of me. Like, man, this guy's lost his mind, right? But I'll never forget, he drove up in my neighborhood and I was on the corner with one of my uncles. And my uncles at the time, they were drug dealers, right? And I wasn't selling drugs, I was just hanging out. You hung out in the neighborhood on the street. It was like, get in the truck. And I got in his truck, he said, point me to your house. I pointed him to my grandmother's house. We pulled up, I get out, and he says to me, Ink, you're better than that. And I was like, I hear you. I was like, but the same corner you just picked me up from, my uncle wear a 2X t-shirt. He said, in the morning when I come to your class, I'm gonna be wearing a 2X t-shirt that he stood on the corner in and probably sold drugs in and did whatever all night, and I'm 135 pounds. I'm coming from a real situation, right? So I hear you talking, but I'm coming from a real situation. And he was like, you think I'm playing? I'll be here in the morning to pick you up. And the next morning he picked me up and he said, here's the deal, man. He said, I'm gonna pick you up, I'm gonna play you in a game of one-on-one basketball every morning, and I'm gonna make you recite a proverb until you graduate high school. And I was like, he's just talking. And every single morning he did it. He would pick me up, take me to school. He would play me in a game of one-on-one basketball, make me recite a proverb. And this is the moment I knew it was for real. The principal came into the gymnasium and said to him, I heard you've been given Inky proverbs. And he said, yes, sir, I have. He said, stop it or I have to fire you. And at the time, my teacher was 23 years old, right? We were his first class of students, fresh out of college. And he looked at the principal and he said, well, you're just gonna have to fire me because his life is worth it, right? And I'll never forget in that moment saying, if he's willing to put the way that he provides for his family on the line for me, I gotta give him everything I got, right? And I never wanted to let him down. I think the greatest gifts in life and it's belief and exposure. There was a lot of moments in my life to where it was people that saw things in me that I couldn't see in myself. And they believed in me in a way that I couldn't believe in myself yet. And I rented their level of belief until I got strong enough to possess my own, right? It's like when you're young and they see you, and it's like even when you start out doing what you're doing, you could be talented, right? And somebody older than you or more experienced than you can see you and know like, oh man, if he did this or if he does this, man, he could be great, right? And they can come to you and say, hey kid, man, you got something, like you could be great, right? Like my teachers and my coaches, when they came to me and they was like, son, I'm telling you, like you can go to college, man. Like you really, I know you're talking about it, but your circumstances are saying different. I think you can do it, right? And when they said it, I'm like, oh, I can do it. Like I can make it happen because they're believing in me making it happen. I think I can do it. So I think belief, and the reason I say exposure is because like I think when you show people things, that's powerful. I think exposure sparks inspiration, right? Exposure sparks motivation. Like when I was coming up in that 2-bedroom house with all those people, And I went to the other side of town with my coach, and he was like, no, you don't have to live like that, Ink. You can live a normal life, right? It changed my whole mindset. And my mindset can never go back to the way that it once was, because I have been exposed to something different, to something new. And so I think belief and exposure are two of the most powerful things that can happen to a person. I was born to a mother at 16 years old, a single mother, and she was working a double shift at Wendy's. And at the time, she took me back to 125 Warren. And so 125 Warren was a 2-bedroom home. You know, it's 14 of us living there in that house. And I slept on the floor, you know, with my cousins, with aunts, you know, there's a lot of us. And when I was in that household, you know, my uncles were going in and out of jail, prison, from doing different crimes. And so being there, it kind of affected me in a couple of different ways. You know, I got to see both sides of the spectrum. I got to see my mother get up and go to work. You know, even though she was a single mother, had a hard time raising a son, then she later had my little sister, but she still got up and she went to work, and she did it the honest way. And I got to watch my uncles, you know, that I felt were good people at heart, but because of the situation and the circumstances, they felt as if they needed fast money. And so they went out and did certain crimes, from drug selling to drug dealing, all type of things. This is about things that I can extract from the sport and apply it to everyday life to make me somewhat of a decent human being, right? And so when my mother did that for me, that made an impact and an imprint on my soul, right, that I take with me even until this day. When you're young, or when you do something and you're a novice, right, and you start out doing it, and you might think you can do something with it, or you might not. You might do it and it's being driven by your passion. And then somebody comes along that's a little bit older or even more experienced, and they can see it in a way that you can't see it, right? And so I think it's important with belief, because if a person believes in you in a way that you don't believe in yourself, you can rent that person's belief until you get strong enough to possess your own, right? And you use that person's belief to fuel you every single day, right? Because you can have a level of belief with what you're doing, but you can go back to a certain set of circumstances that tell you, nah, it's not gonna happen. And so you rent that person's belief until you get strong enough to possess your own. I think having a purpose is that thing that makes us tick, that gets us up every day and gets us over the hump of opposition and adversity. And the reason that I champion adversity and opposition is because I think for the most part in life, people pretty much know what to do when things go right. Right? Like when things go right, they know how to feel, they know how to act, how to react. But it's when that opposition and that adversity comes and it creates a level of misunderstanding, right? Now the vision is blurred. Now you don't have clarity about what you're supposed to do. Now you question if your existence matters. And I think when you have a purpose, it's powerful because in the midst of the opposition, it makes you realize that you've been put here for a certain reason. And so me, once I tapped into my purpose of once I thought it was football, right? But when I started speaking, I'll never forget the day I got the exact same feeling backstage that I used to get before I ran out on the field to play football. And that's when I knew, like, this is my purpose. This is what I've been put here to do. And so the opposition, adversity, the challenges, it's just a part of the process. It's gonna make me a better person. But my purpose, I can't let anything stop or detour me from tapping into that every single day. Because the key with purpose is, I firmly believe every person's purpose is tied to somebody else's purpose and destiny. And so your purpose, my purpose, is tied to somebody else. Like when I speak, when I do what I do, like people say, "Oh man, I really needed to hear that," right? That helped me do this. That helped get me through this. That helped me with this. That's my purpose being tied to other people's purpose, destiny, beliefs, and dreams. That's the power and magic of purpose, right? I don't think it can be a purpose without being tied to other people's purpose. I appreciate their platform and what they do. Most importantly, I respect and I admire it. Take care. Peace.